I would describe recent headlines as concerning for Canada, and Canadians need to wake up. Cuba braces for possible U.S. military action as uncertainty follows Castro indictment. The United States may invade Cuba now. Federal prosecutors announced criminal charges against Castro Wednesday in the 1996 downing of two small planes flown by Miami-based exile group Brothers to the Rescue. Castro, who turns 95 next month, was Cuba's defense minister at the time. The United States is well aware that countries shouldn't be able to just shoot down planes whenever they want. It's a much better idea to just blow up boats. And if there's any survivors clinging to the wreckage, then just take another shot. The Pentagon walks away from Canada-US Defense Board. So the United States now views Canada as a weak partner in the defense of what they call their hemisphere. Protest planned at new consulate after the president's envoy says it's time for the U.S. to put its footprint back on Greenland. The warmongering rhetoric targeting Greenland has resurfaced again. And all of this is happening while the United States is engaged in a war in the Middle East. So far, this latest U.S. administration has dropped bombs on 7 countries: Yemen, Somalia, Iran, Venezuela, Nigeria, Syria, and Iraq. And I know that for most people, it's a stretch to extrapolate this and even consider the fact that it's possible that Canada will be targeted, or Greenland, or Panama. That's just rhetoric, right? But you have to acknowledge the change that's occurred in the way the United States pursues its foreign policy. And I say the word pursues on purpose because they spell it out in their national security document. The United States must reconsider our military presence in the Western Hemisphere. This means 4 obvious things: a readjustment of our global military presence to address urgent threats in our hemisphere, especially the missions identified in this strategy. It's a document that states exactly what their strategy and what they want to do. And if I could summarize it, it basically says that the United States now views the Western Hemisphere as theirs. And it's theirs to control and theirs to run and theirs to do whatever they wish with. And that hemisphere includes Panama, Greenland, Canada, Mexico, and all of South America, the countries that they've been threatening verbally so far, other than Venezuela, that they've actually dropped bombs on. So it's not so far-fetched to imagine how this could escalate. And they are escalating. Just on May 21st here, the headline, Pentagon doubles down on Canada rebuke with demand for NATO spending roadmap and F-35 decision. Now, let me play you a clip from a podcaster, not an old clip from 2 or 3 years ago, April 2nd, 2026. And this podcaster has tremendous influence over the administration and the president. They speak frequently on the phone, and he's very influential. In fact, it seems to be the way the president governs in the United States. First of all, the country puts their strategy in black and white for everyone to read, that national security document. And then the media system in the United States, a lot of the podcasters and influencers, spew their rhetoric and their ideas. And the president watches these things and he gets influenced. He's one of the most easily manipulated presidents in U.S. history. So this guy has influence on him, and listen to him talk about the country that the U.S. is irritated with.
Wealth comes from resources. And Trump, because he is in the best way, at his best, a primitive person, understands the primitive reality, which is we need these things. Canada has far more oil than the United States, far more fresh water than the United States. Canada is the fourth biggest oil reserves in the world. How much do Americans know about Canada? Well, Canada happens to be falling apart as a nation, completely falling apart. It's in a state of domestic chaos. It's become a police state under the influence of China. Canada, the country with which we share the longest border. Our most critical ally on the globe is Canada, the country we ignore. How many Americans know what its capital is or how to pronounce it? Probably under half. Canada is the single most important relationship that we have. It has always been our largest trading partner. But going forward, as American influence recedes to our hemisphere, what happens in Canada matters more than anything else. Maybe we should think about that. Maybe we should try to exert some influence on Canada, not necessarily by force, though by force if necessary, You could certainly make a regime change argument about Canada. Talk about a country that's oppressing its own citizens, killed almost 100,000 of them through its state-sponsored killing program, MAIDS. You could make a human rights case to invade Canada, not that we should, but if ever there was a people that needed liberation from a government that hates them, it's the Canadians, of course. But you could make a case based on self-interest and regional interest, even on decency, to have a lot more positive influence on the internal affairs of Canada than we currently do.
Canada is falling apart. The citizens are being oppressed. We've become a police state controlled by China. The United States has to invade us to save us. Now, this all sounds ridiculous to you. That crackpot Tucker Carlson is just spewing nonsense. We all realize this. My point of the video is not to legitimize anything that he's saying. But you have to understand that the President of the United States watches him and listens to him and has his number on speed dial, and they talk on the phone all the time. So this type of thing has influence. We live in a world now where a nut job can call another nut job, and then that nut job can have a meeting with a bunch of whack jobs, and next thing you know, something really bad is happening. And I just want to point this out to Canadians that we need to wake up and understand what we're dealing with south of the border. We're not dealing with something rational. So this idea that we had over, say, the past year and a half, this sentiment, this feeling that you've heard from some of your friends. Well, the president, when he says that, it's just rhetoric. He doesn't really mean it. Trying to explain or rationalize something ridiculously stupid that he said, and try not to put weight on it because that's so stupid, that's so far-fetched that won't happen. There's no way the United States will invade Panama. There's no way that the United States would go and invade Venezuela. Why would they invade Venezuela? There's no way that the United States would start a war in the Middle East. I mean, the president campaigned on no more wars. So nothing is far-fetched. And we need to wake up as Canadians. The only way we can make a difference, I've mentioned this 100 times on my channel, is just don't support that government, that country, that I shouldn't say the word country, let me back up. Don't support that government or administration in any way. That means don't buy a vehicle manufactured in the United States. Don't go there on holiday. Don't inject your money into that economy that fuels that administration, that funds them, that buys the bombs that they're dropping in Iran, the Tomahawk missile that dropped and hit the school and killed 160 plus kids and teachers. That bomb was bought by money that the U.S. administration has. When you go on holiday in the United States and you go there for 3 weeks and you spend $15,000 and you shop and you enjoy yourself there, the things you buy and the things you do and where you spend your money there gets taxed, and some of that money goes to the U.S. government. And that money's used for what they're doing. So I still can't believe that there's Canadians that are so desensitized and don't maybe see that they have any moral stake in their decisions, that they detach themselves from that. Well, it's not me that's dropping the bombs. It's not me that's running the United States. It's okay. They detach themselves from what's happening to continue with their own enjoyment or whatever they want to do. In a similar way, let me just throw this out there. In 1939, there were probably a lot of people in Poland and France that thought, well, it would be a really good idea to go on vacation and visit Berlin this year. When Hitler says those things he's saying in those speeches, he doesn't really mean them. That's all just rhetoric. There's no way that he'll ever declare war on the whole world. There's many different ways that evil manifests itself. In the early 1940s, invading a country and taking over its resources meant sending in your military, killing a lot of people, and taking over the country and running it. But it can be done differently now. You can achieve the same goal in different ways, but evil is still evil. For example, that first headline that I read you in this video, Cuba bracing for possible U.S. invasion. The U.S. has been embargoing Cuba for about 70 years. The United States has been conducting a slow, steady genocide in Cuba for 70 years. There are some people, most people who live in Cuba now, were not alive back in the 1950s during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Bay of Pigs, that started off this whole conflict with Cuba. Most of the people that live in Cuba were born into living in a country that's been embargoed, living poor and starving their whole life because of the United States. And the United States says, well, Cuba represents a threat and we have to deal with them this way. There's other countries that represent a threat to the United States, like North Korea and China and Russia. But US presidents have visited those countries and trade with those countries. But Cuba, we're conducting a slow, methodical 70-year genocide against that country. Is that evil, or is that just foreign policy? You let me know in the comment section. Does that represent an evil act by the United States, or does that represent, well, it's a foreign policy issue and a decision that we've had to make and for the benefit and safety of the United States? The United States National Security Document talks about the Western Hemisphere as being their hemisphere to rule. The United States views Canada and everyone else in the Western Hemisphere as a vassal state to support their country. And Canadians, we need to all wake up as citizens and just stop supporting that regime south of the border. And our federal government has to continue in diversifying our relationships with many, many other countries in the world other than the United States. Just as Canada needs to approach these things in a position of strength, one of our premiers decided to throw a wrench into that and say, well, the discussion Canada should be having now is whether one of the provinces wants to separate. You can be sure that the Americans will use that issue to their advantage as much as they can during the Kuzma review. So thank you, Daniel Smith, you pathetic politician. You should resign. Albertans, you need to get rid of that premier. But if you vote again for that Conservative Party, that's not really a Conservative Party, it's a coalition of former Conservatives and separatists. It's just going to be the same thing for the next 4-year term. It'll just continue. Albertans, you need to wake up and throw that party out, teach them a lesson, and elect a party that's pro-Canadian. Canada needs to be united now. We have to be proudly patriotic. We need to move forward united, because what was once thought of as our friend and ally is no longer our friend and ally. All they care about is our money, our resources, and our geographic position in their hemisphere. Leave some comments in the comment section. I'd be very interested in your point of view on this topic today. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe to my channel if you're enjoying the content. And I'll catch you all on the next one.